Well, hello everybody, and welcome to round 5 of the BUSR Summer Championship for Formula One. And with us today, we've got Oren. Hello there.
Happy to be back for some more commentary.
Right, so after last week, we had I'm going to say, a difficult race for a couple people, especially in the overtaking department. But after the conundrums that we have, our championship has actually closed up. And as I just bring it up here, yeah, looking at the moment, only 4 points difference between first and second place between Ben Mills and Tom Roberts, with Laston and Newt a couple points behind. So all to play for with 3 rounds to go. And today we are at the lovely track of Canada. So, Oren, anything about Canada that's interesting to be on the Formula One game?
I was doing a few laps of Canada earlier today, try and get a feel. And let me tell you, the low speed grip is appalling, especially out of turn two. Naturally, quite a long, low speed corner, so you got to feed the power slowly. But even then, the grip was just so bad. And then when we look back to Silverstone, the dirty air was a massive issue. We could see that Josh just really struggled to close up to Ben and just could not make the move. Canada's a bit more low speed, so hopefully the dirty air won't play a big effect and we get to see some overtaking. But on this game, it is fastest to run low downforce, so the DRS has less effect. So hopefully we have an exciting race, but I can't make any promises.
Yeah, Canada being what it is essentially a street circuit. It's more of a purpose-built street circuit, but it does have some of those risks in terms of the walls, especially very famously the Wall of Champions is going to be one of those that is always caught people out, as well as turn for some shenanigans. Whether it's 2019, Sebastian Vettel having his moment there. So we only got a couple minutes away from qualifying. My thing I'm going to be asking to you, Aaron, is now that the championship's kind of closed up and the drivers that we have in, as we have Newt, we will have last gen Newt, Josh, and Ben in this lobby. How do you feel the championship's going to be shaking up when you have this caliber of drivers like fighting at the front, fighting for those points?
Well, we know the pace of Tom Roberts is absolutely incredible, but if he can't get it together in qualifying, we still saw at Silverstone. You don't know what happens when you overtake through the grid, and he picked up damage, and it cost him major points, and that allowed Ben Mills to make his way through into the lead. Josh Woolley and Lastren also making up points. So all Tom Roberts really needs to do is get it together in qualifying and run away with it at the front, and I think the championship will be his. We did actually race at Canada this academic year for round two of the spring championship, and it was Ben Mills who was second ahead of Josh Woolley by 16 milliseconds, followed by Geek and then Alpha not too far behind. Last gen you also had a quite decent qualifying, but obviously this game different handling model, so who knows who's going to be fastest. Another crucial thing for Canada is it's just so easy to pick up time penalties because you want to take as much of the curve as possible to maximize time. But if you put all four wheels off, you will pick up a time penalty. And unlike in real life, you cannot serve 3 seconds in the pit. And if we look to last gen U was actually promoted from fifth on the grid up to third. And the podium last year was the top three were the only drivers who didn't get a time penalty. So it just shows how crucial it is that being clean is more important than just being fast.
Well, we'll see how important those track limits are, especially as maximizing. I think of again turn four, return. A lot of them are going onto those DRS straights, with the exception, of course, of that last hairpin at the very end of the lap. It'll be interesting to see. I think the one thing that you have already accounted for again is that low downforce levels that we see in this game in general. That back straight is going to be really important because it has both not just a DRS straight, but so long in itself that that's going to be where you're going to see the majority of overtaking. So it's going to be interesting to see how we are going to see how this plays out. Of course, again, we're hopefully seeing a bit of a different matter compared to what we saw in Silverstone, where we did not see a lot of overtaking due to both the ability to regenerate ERS as well as that ability to overtake because of how low the rings are, DRS not being as strong. That will be things to watch out for, and we will be going into qualifying any moment now. But I think a question to think about here is is there anyone here, and I think in the lobby, you've got your outsiders, you've got Owen who likes doing opposite strategies. You have Alpha as well. Do you think any of these sort of drivers that have been in and out mid pack of this rosters of drivers, do you think they have anything that can really play into this? race?
I think one thing about Canada is they has the shortest pit loss of any circuit on the calendar. And as we said before, you'll be running low downforce, and that means you'll be sliding the tire more and generating more grip. So maybe we can expect a surprise two stop on the drivers. Obviously, it's a street circuit, so we can expect safety cars. So if you play the two stop and you get two safety cars, then you'll be on the fresher tires at the right moment, and maybe you can catch some of the faster guys out.
Yeah, and naturally, that'd be there's one aspect that we see very common, of course, in the BUS. We didn't actually see it last week. Was of course safety cars being at play, virtual safety cars. I mean, Silverstone was a very it's wide. It's probably one of the widest tracks in terms of not just how wide the circuit is, but also the walls are quite far away. So we didn't see anything in terms of those outside external factors at play. So uh, again, that's going to be playing into the strategy, and I think it'd be more interesting to see how close the lap times are going to be between the top drivers. Because as you said, milliseconds are count on this track, and it's not. I think it's not a very long lap either in an F1 car.
No, it's not a long lap either, but unfortunately on this game they have made it so the soft tire is pretty useless for a second run. So before normally you can maybe double run a set or like triple run a set. In this game, your second run it will only be to fix the mistakes you probably made on your first lap. So I think maybe we'll see three runs on three sets of tires, but it's going to be important that you just get that banker lap in, so then you can push hard on the second and third lap. Because as I said before, it's just so easy just accidentally wander off track and invalidate your lap. So qualifying is going to be very important as well because. As we saw in Silverstone, it was very hard to overtake. So your qualifying position very well may be where you end up finishing.
Yeah, and luckily this is a normal race week, so they will be having three sets of soft tires. So they will have multiple runs at it. Again, for viewers who are not used to our series, we just run a single 18-minute qualifying session. They do have about three new soft tires to use, so it will be important. It will kind of demonstrate the ebb and flow of the session as we are just getting our little bits together. Drivers
I
all
mean, you talked about interesting strategies earlier. I've just been told that Meet the Teacher has decided to get ChatGPT to do his race strategy today. So maybe we'll expect something exciting from him. Who knows?
I hope it's based on this game and not off the 2021 data it's probably been trained on.
To do soft medium, which I think is very interesting considering the high tire wear that we expect on this game. So is that something? Is that going to be the outside strategy there from Meet the Teacher?
I think if you're saying how bad the softs are going to last, it will be more of a you see more of just random marbles flying off as the wheels just collapsing into pieces. So again, I think the thing to focus on, and I think if any of you guys at home are really watching, keep an eye out on top, especially with the outsides of last gen Newt causing upsets. Josh is going to be wanting to absolutely send it compared to the fact he's been stuck behind drivers for a couple of weeks. And of course, Ben will definitely want to be trying to keep his first place, just clutching on at the moment.
I mean, what some people do is like what we saw Geek do at Silverstone is start on the medium tire. Because a lot of the front guys will opt for the hards. Because when you box onto hards, obviously nowadays we don't have tire blankets. So the warm up for the hard tire is so high that you end up losing time on your first two laps. I mean, it's quite easy to overcut. So if you start on the mediums, it means that you could potentially jump some front guys and get in the mix there. So that is one way that maybe if you're maybe like a Geek or an Alpha, you could just get your way up the grid and just be an absolute menace to the front guys.
Yeah, and I think right now we're seeing definitely across the season. Again, outside of those external factors, a lot of those drivers. I think a lot of the drivers definitely in the mid and lower end, just more again mixing up with different strategies. I think as we are getting into our qualifying, it's gonna be nice and dry, nice and sunny, which I always find a bit weird compared. I've mainly seen Canada being very much a wet race over the last couple of years in real life.
Yeah, it's quite fun in the wet because the car slides a bit more. And quite interestingly, the nature of the pit lane actually means that you could set the fastest lap coming out of the pit lane because you avoid the whole turn one, turn two complex. But as you said, it's the dry, so the drivers have done all their Grand Prix practicing in the dry, so nothing's going to shake them up here. It'll just be a normal qualifying for most of the drivers.
Yeah, and as we can see, guys, we have our first cars going out for their first exploration laps to see both how the grip levels are as well as setting up for their first qualifying laps. So, cut. We're going to probably expect most drivers to be making their way out of the pit lane, the out and on to the track itself. And again, dirty air being a bit more of a struggle, making sure you have that gap between cars is going to be very important for these drivers, as setting up for a qualifying lap is going to be very important if you're not that lead driver out there. And we're just on board with last gen Newt, currently third in the championship, a little bit behind the other two. Um, with just about 10 points over. But I'm going to say now, like, as we're just setting up, I do love the chrome livery from that McLaren.
Absolutely beautiful livery for the McLarens. I think both McLarens have the chrome livery, so expect to see them running that. Last gen Newt now just winding around the final corner. He'll be slowing down a bit just to give him some space to the Williams in front of him. Don't want to be collecting any of that dirty air, which you've seen is absolutely detrimental. Doing some final tyre warm-up before he starts his lap.
Yeah, and just for a lot of people at home, you'll see a lot of yellow flags in Sector 3. There's going to be a lot of drivers just setting themselves up and going along in an orderly click queue, as many of them do. And so, out the wall champions they go, and on to a flying lap. I think Ara, as our expert in the house, I want you to go on board and tell us a lap here.
Cross the turn two long, slow corner. You want to try and put the power down, but you also want to keep the rear in check, stop them from spinning. Turn three, blind downhill right-hander. Very easy to cut the inside, but giving it loads of room. There's last one usually just trying to set a banker lap. Winding now through the turn 5-6 complex. You want to take a lot of the curb here in turn 6, but avoid it on turn 7 so you can plant the power onto the second of the DRS straights. Drive the car towards the right to take the shortest line. Now towards turn 8 and 9. Very easy to cut turn 9, but he's once again giving a lot of room. Just does not want to invalidate this lap. Now ending sector 2 on towards the hairpin. One of the most important traction zones here on the circuit as it leads you onto a long straight. Take a nice wide line there using all the downforce the car has to provide to be able to get the power down. Opens up the DRS now as he gets towards the line, and he'll be dumping the battery that he's been saving up all lap to maximise his top speed, heading towards the wall of champions. Very easy to invalidate here as you send it through. Does it very nicely, gives the wall a lot of room, and then saves the right for the shortest line, and cross the line to... Ooh, maybe he invalidated somewhere, because he didn't appear to set a time, so maybe we missed it. But that's not great from him.
Yeah, and just get the track map for you. See the red there being invalidated as we actually see Ben Mills setting the yard post of a 109.2. So keep an eye for the other drivers trying to get near there, as of course Sasson having a 110.2, followed by a 0.6 from GM. But we do have a couple of fast drivers still remaining to set some laps, with Meet the Chief Teacher going across the line, setting a 118.5. Definitely a bit off the pace for now, but we'll see how they improve later on. Geek is already invalidated, so will not be getting something, and we'll have to go again or go and put on a new set of boots. I think AL's looking to try and set some times here, but only getting third for now on a 110.5, as we're seeing Tom Roberts invalidating their lap earlier in doing so. Tom is not having a good time in a previous week trying to set laps, and a lot of his drivers making mistakes already.
Is that AL missing the front part, the right part of his front wing? I believe there's an M plate missing there on AL, but he's still out doing a lap, so maybe it's not affecting him too badly as we now watch him come towards us. And yeah, you can see there the left M plate is missing on his car, so he's obviously had a knock into the wall somewhere, so that's not going to be great. But still managed to go third fastest, so maybe there's still some time in that McLaren.
Yeah, and I think you know, it may be a Leclerc moment as we see as an M-Plate got knocked off and suddenly the car went faster for some reason. I don't know how well that would translate into the F1 game, but we will see a little bit of traffic already building up at the back of the long straight. You've got to be very careful for impeding, as the stewards can get involved and, well, can penalise you in the future. But for now, we're going to be seeing our drivers coming in here, setting up a new set of tyres and fuel, due to the fact these people are going to be able to only do one lap with these soft tires, as you said earlier. So we will be getting into another lull in our qualifying session, but be ready, as we will see some other cars coming up very soon.
See some high profile drivers like last gen you Just Willie and Geek not being able to set their first lap, so that is essentially a wasted first set of tyres, and it's going to make it's going to put a lot of pressure on them now to make sure they get it done on the second and third lap, as we now ride on board with Tom Roberts heading through turn 3, giving it a lot of room, trying to just set a lap because he hasn't actually managed to do it, because he also invalidated his first lap, taking a lot
Yeah,
of curbs there. Oh, sorry.
no, looks like probably just has enough fuel to try and get itself across the line. Currently valid at the moment, and as we're going into sector 2, I find, oh my goodness, there's a bit of rear instability there. I think this game you do have to have quite a lot of slip to try and get it through as fast as possible, just because of how much rear grip there is in this game. But now we're going to be flipping over into the third sector. It's mostly just a straight line after this hairpin and dumping the battery, as you said earlier, trying to get across the line and trying to set a lap, because Tom Roberts has had a struggle in terms of getting valid lap times last week. Let's see if this week we can get some importance. Josh has finally put a lap time on the board of a 109.1. And we're going to be looking to try and see if we can nip the 108s later in the session as an invalidated again from that last chicane.
Especially tricky chicane with the Wall of Champion chicane, because you want to, it's the last corner of the lap, so you want to absolutely send it to try and maximize your lap time. But then, of course, it's so easy just to cut the corner, maybe even go into the wall. But as we saw there from Tom Roberts, he just took a little bit too much speed and it cost him his entire lap.
Yeah, and you can see here now Josh trying to push as hard as he can, trying to get any sort of lap time he can. I would say actually keep an eye out for cars that are setting up their laps. You can see a lot of outlaps on the timing screen there. That just says to everyone there's going to be some traffic in the way, and that's going to cause some problems potentially for drivers. We hope we don't, because we don't want people to be messing it up as it is. As actually drivers not swinging super wide. There's definitely some. I feel, just watching the onboards of this track in real life, trying to maximize those exits, especially turn 4. I think maybe some drivers are trying to be a bit more lenient. You can see with Newt hasn't got a lap time on the board yet, so maybe taking it a little bit easy. And my goodness, the slip that you had to get through that corner to go as fast as possible is dramatic.
Feedback on this game for our wheel users at low speed is really poor, and since this track is mainly low speed corners and a lot of slippery surfaces, it's just a real struggle for them to try and put the power down. But most of the invalidation are going to come for just carrying too much speed through the corners, and that's obviously where the pace is. As we watched last gen, you overtake a car, heads through the final chicane, keeping it all nice and tidy, keeps it to the right for the shortest line, and he goes third fastest. Decent lap there from last gen, and goes into the 1 minute 9s.
Yeah, Aaron just slowing down quickly. Let some of the cars that are on their flying lap to get through. It really shows that we have a top 2 battle in the way, as we did last week. Only about just working off the top of my head. That's almost just under 200ths of a second difference between, as Ben has got a purple sector already.
Yeah, this was very close. Sort of the qualifying gap was last time he came here, but obviously it was Ben Mills on top, so he'll be heading back out on a fresh set of tyres. And as we see him winding around now, trying his hardest to beat Josh's lap. Towards the hairpin we go. Nice and tidy there on the brakes. Nice wide line, carry the speed. Planting the pads, the yellow flag, but I think that might just be somebody trying to set up their lap. Hopefully they get out of the way. As you can see on the track map, there's about 5 drivers there, so hopefully they can all get out of the way. So Ben is now powers towards the final chicane. And there's a Aston Martin in the way. That's not going to be great for him. Ben Mills able to finish his lap, and maybe that Aston Martin's probably going to get hit with a time penalty there, because that was very bad impeding.
Yeah, and that was actually 2 purple sectors coming out for Ben Mills, so that is really unfortunate to end the lap the way it has, because that was going to be, some sort of mount to try and take on Josh's time. He's, again, 300th per second, and those hundredths really are important here, as we're going to see cars going nice and to the corner. It's going to be a game of who can get as close as possible actually hitting that wall, because the more speed you can carry, the more it's going to help you all the way down to the next couple of corners. And as we see right now, Josh is going to be going for his outlap, and another set of flying laps will be coming. So whether or not that time will improve, we will see. Let's keep an eye on AL right now, as an invalid lap time is not going to be helping their mount for any improvement in this qualifying session for now, as we're actually seeing a couple of cautions out. Again, drivers trying to dart out the way of faster traffic. Sorry, faster cars going on flying laps. I think, actually, we're going to see Edie's finally set a time in that kick. Sauber. And we've still got Tom Roberts has not set a time yet, as well as SK, who is currently in the pits. I think, Oren, I think to you right now, it's going to be a fight for two-way. Do you think Ben Mills has got a chance, especially as Josh is just about going to be setting up for a flying lap?
I think Ben did, as I said, is just went very conservative on his first lap, managed to get the banker in, and what that meant is that although his second lap was unfortunately impeded, he now has that third set of tyres, so he can go out again and try and beat Josh, who's currently on a lap, to try and extend his lead to Ben in front.
Right, and in the meantime, we're going to see, there we go, we're going to see our current set of new outlaps. A lot of drivers going to set their second of 3 attempts in this qualifying session. I think at the moment, we are currently looking at Josh, who's already got a purple first sector, again, trying to push those lap times a little bit faster where they can, trying to run it on the inside, keep the distance to next corner as short as possible, take as much curb as you can there, as the car will entail as the, this game has very much got a lot of rear grip. It can take a lot of corners as the second purple sector is being made. Only a couple more corners to go. That hairpin swinging nice and wide. Get as much lateral speed as much as you can. Going down this straight, burn the battery where you can. Anything you've got left with that DRS. One set of corners remaining. The world champions wanting to tempt people to get closer and closer. Gets through it clear. Comes across the line. And we are going into the 108, so 108.6, showing that there's definitely more lap time to be made.
That's Tom Roberts retiring from the session. I think that was done in the pit lane, so I'm not sure what issues he's having, but he will start from the back of the field, unfortunately. As now we see Ben Mills winding up start lap. Let's see what he can do to take on Josh. Head through turn 1, nice and clean. Carrying the speed through turn 2, gets on power very nicely. Towards turn 3, taking a wide line, wide entry, avoids the grass on the inside, means he can put the power down, hugs the inside wall of turn 5, heading towards turn 6. Let's see how much the inside curb he takes, quite a bit there. Plants the power onto the second DRS straight, moves to the right, shortest line, you don't want to be giving any time away. Very difficult comps up there, 8 and 9, very easy to cut, but he keeps it clean and carries a great amount of speed through there. And as he exits sector 2 towards the hairpin, it is a purple middle sector, so this could be quite tight here between Josh Woolley and Ben Mills as he comes out the hairpin. You can just see the rear end twitching as he's just trying to get power down as early as he can. Burns the battery, DRS open, absolutely flying. And you're only thinking about one thing now, and it's you're braking for the chicane. As here he comes through the chicane, so close to the wall. Oh, too much speed. And that's probably going to be his final lap as well, so Ben Mills not able to challenge Josh.
Yeah, it looks like the Wall of Champions, that last chicane being very difficult in terms of getting it through. You have to keep as much speed as possible, but again, it's quite a tight corner, and there's actually quite a lot of what we call sausage curbs in the way there, curbs that are going to bounce the car, make it unstable. So you really want to try and be as precise as possible. And looks like in this case, Ben Mills has made that mistake. Again, keeping a 102 on the line. This means Last Gen knew if there is enough time, and if Josh has demonstrated we can go into the 108, I think Last Gen Nuke might have a chance if he can get a lap together, as we have got under 3 minutes to go. So a lot of these drivers will be going out for the final time, final lap.
Watching onboard of a car going through the final chicane because it's just so flat and it's just so inviting to just put four tires off the track because you just want to carry as much speed as possible. You will be able to see your delta in the top right, and you know what lap you're about to do as you come through that chicane, so you know how much time you need to find, and it's just the pressure that builds up, and you just carry a bit too much speed, and it's just so easy to do.
It's unfortunate for them, and we're going to be looking at Tom Huggs at the moment, currently 10th in that Aston Martin. Actually had some pretty good result at Silverstone. We'll be wanting to try and see if there's anything more they can be pushed out of this Aston Martin. Again, we're going to be looking at this chicane. You can see they're trying to ride up the curve, trying to maximize the speed that you can, while not trying to unsettle the car. And that is a very, very sizable improvement in a 1 of 10 won a 10-0, put himself in 5th position, and Meet the Teacher currently a second behind anyone else. We want to try and see if he can close up with some of the cars further back in the field. I think it's more interesting to see why Geek is so far down, currently in 9th place on their outlap, so does have a final set of those new soft tyres. I'm wondering to you, is this a bit interesting to see how low he is?
Because he set quite a conservative first lap and then potentially invalidated on his second. So I think it's very, I think Geek's here out of position, but he has time to go for a final lap. So hopefully he throws himself back up the field, because I think he'd be disappointed if he started the race in ninth. Meets Teacher then crossing the line and does not improve unless he's starting a lap, and I've missed that.
No, had a marginal improvement of a couple tenths of a second, but again, we're 1:11.5s, again, just being just about a second under. I think it's more interesting to look at. We have a lot of cars now out on their final lap, about just under a minute to go. So any more drivers going to be coming across here will be trying to set their final lap time. So watch the timing streams as we have about 30 seconds remaining, as we're currently looking on board. AL in 6th position, had a relatively okay outing. Actually, bit of an unfortunate event in that McLaren at Silverstone, but we'll be wanting to make some improvements. A 110.1 is going to be where they'll be setting, but there is going to be a lot of drivers in that couple tenths of a second. If you think about it, it's about 2 tenths of a second is going to be a difference between 6th and 3rd place. So let's see how this is going to go. Got a couple corners left in this match, as we are going to be seeing it going over into the 3rd sector. So look at the map, see if there's any change in those colors. And it looks like there's not much there, so there will not be much improvement. Let's see in that 2nd sector. He has one last sector to try and improve it. Again, trying to maximize that hairpin, get as much speed as you can. And we're going to see Josh improving the times up by another tenth of a second, really wanting to cement their pole position for the race itself. Final corners here for AL, keeping it clean, keeping it close to the corners, maximizing where you can, cross the line and going into 3rd place. Again, we're seeing improvements in terms of times at 109.5. And now we're going to be seeing Geek trying to make that improvement is still valid. So let's see, we're going to see some improvements, and it will be seeing some improvements indeed. A 109.8 put him up into provisional 6th position, as we're going to be seeing Last Gen Newt actually getting pipped by AL by a tenth of a second. Will be on that 2nd point, as we're going to see invalidation for Assassin and a last car across the line. So Josh really cementing themselves, as Ben Mills going to have to make some way through for this race.
Yeah, we saw there in qualifying, it was quite tight between, was it, P3 all the way down to really about P7 there, and you saw that AL only found about 2 tenths, but it was enough to play him up to P3. But Josh Woolley's just in a class of his own there, out at the front. Hopefully in the race, Ben Mills, Nasjan and Ali can come back at him, but we'll wait and see.
Yeah, and I think in the meantime, we're going to take a short break and have a little showing from our partners else in our race. We'll be back in a little bit.
Welcome back. I've unfortunately lost my second commentator. So as I'm here by myself, I guess looking into the race, we got to start thinking about the race strategies. As I said before, Canada does lend itself towards a two-stop because it has the shortest pit loss, so maybe we could see some drivers down the field making use of two-stop, or maybe they'll be forced into the two-stop, because obviously this is a street race. So there could be some safety cars, and it could force all the drivers into the two-stop, so they'll probably have that in the back of their mind. If a safety car came out now, what will they box onto, and how the strategy is going to change throughout the race?
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see what the strategy is going to be at play again. It is going to be, as you said, a street circuit. External factors can be at play. It's F125, so we'll see what will happen. As of course, we'll also be loading in. I think the main thing from that qualifying session is going to be that you saw last gen Newt and Ben Mills out of position, being in that second and fourth place. It means they're going to have to try and get out, especially as the first and third places on that inside corner. It's very difficult to actually overtake. I think the thing to think about here is whether or not they can get those positions up and not make the dirty air rip their tires to shreds. Because as you said, it's going to be all about whether or not they can keep the tires relatively okay, and whether or not they can take the opportunities where they can. Because again, degradation a lot higher here than Silverstone. Actually, no, a lot higher in terms of the deg in this particular circuit compared to one where dirty air is more at play. In the meantime, yes, I know buckets. Unfortunate for your internet. I wish you were racing here, but understand that some factors are not always fun. I think, Oren, we're in for an interesting one. Again, a lot of drivers out of position, and it's going to be interesting to see how we're gonna. I think it's going to be more about how well these DRSs are going to be important because there are three. I think it is three different parts where there's DRS available.
Try and be quite optimistic here, and I think we will see some overtaking. Not just I might be a bit delusional, but as we saw in Silverstone, there aren't many slow speed corners, so all the drivers are saving in the same places and using in the same places. But Canada has a lot more slow speed corners, so maybe if you deploy your battery in a sector where they're maybe not expecting it, maybe out of turn 7 into turn 8, you might get a move.
Right, no worries. 5 red lights is going to be on the way, and we go racing at Canada. So we're going to see drivers going left and right. Inside is going to be Josh Wills putting as much late braking coming out from Ben Mills. Takes the overtaking opportunity, and that's going to be a quick overtake for Ben Mills, leading the race. We're going to see if Josh can do anything in return, going side by side, but thinks better off it coming out of turn 4 as a couple of drivers are going to be making their way up and down the field as Geek has also made a positional gain as well as Newt, as AL's had a horrific start down to 5th place, and we will be seeing a couple. We're going to see most people on that hard tyres. We're going to see some contact further down the field, and looks like it's going to be a bit of an Eaton front wing there for a couple of drivers. As I was going to actually point out how everyone's running hard tyres, but meet the teacher again further back in the field, but making some gains, of course, from the collisions that we saw. Where we're going to be seeing a side-by-side. Tom Roberts, again, further out in the field, starting at the rear of the field, will be making the overtake, going into 8th position, showing who is the best Mercedes driver for today for now. And I think for now, we're going to be seeing Ben Mills in the lead.
So at the start, the last gen New and Geek were out of position, and as well as Ben Mills, clearly they didn't want to waste any time getting into their respective positions as they've done so into turn 1 and turn 2. Tom Roberts is going to love seeing that collision with Alpha because it just helped him gain 5 positions there, and this time managing to overtake his teammate without collecting any damage.
Yeah, and now we're going to be seeing a couple purple sectors as drivers will be getting increasing speed and getting people up as Tom Roberts going to be making another overtake going into 7th position. As actually, no, they're going more side by side at the moment. Let's have a look going into turn 7. Going side by side, but looks like the outside is going to be where Tom Roberts makes that play, and up to 7th position. We're going to be seeing a drag race to the line is going. I think we're going to see a couple opportunities here, but it looks like thinks better of it as Edie thinks better and does not make that overtake there. I think it's going to be things to think about is we're going to be seeing DRS available. It's going to be very important. As we said, free DRS zones are going to be here, include that very long straight where drivers can make those overtakes. I think it's usually the safest place to overtake, as we're going to see the wings going in. And it looks like Josh has actually taken an opportunity in DRS, does the overtake, and will be taking the lead, but Ben Mills will be attacking in response to see how he can get through, and of course doesn't quite be there for now, but is keeping right on the gearbox of that Visa Cash App Racing Bull car. I know it's a really long, very long-winded, but that's the way we have in terms of sponsorship and racing. In the meantime, I think we're seeing it be quite close.
Steve Mike, I don't know what we were worrying about. We thought there was going to be an overtaking because of the dirt. Yeah, it looks like we're going to have an absolute title scrap here between Ben Mills and Josh Woolley. And don't rule out Tom Roberts. He's flying up through the field, so maybe he can join the pie up at third. But right now, it does appear to be a two-horse race with Last Gen U just falling out of the DRS. Hopefully, if these two keep fighting, he can join back up. And Geek's not too far behind either.
I think we're just saying, as you were saying earlier, actually a bit of contact with the rear diffuser there on Josh, and that's not going to be helpful. I think actually I was just going to point out, we've already got a 3-second time penalty, so it's been 3 laps and already a 3-second penalty. So again, I'm wondering how important these penalties are going to be.
It just shows how much you drivers are pushing, everyone giving it an absolute 110%. And you see it's just costing GMT there, but if there's a safety car, everyone bunches up, that is going to cost him massively towards the end. You do not want to be picking up penalties this early. As we Tom Roberts here making a move down the inside, late one into turn 1. It's going to be round the outside here of turn 2. Can he pick up the power on Assassin? Assassin's now going to have the inside line heading towards turn 3. Can Tom Roberts make the move on the outside? Yes, he can. And moves up into P7 now with his eyes on Ali.
Yeah, P6 actually for the Mercedes driver. Again, Ben Mills keep himself in 4/10 of a second. Tom Roberts is going to be a bit of a window here, as now it's going to be the last car before they're going to have a little bit of gap before getting to Geek in that Red Bull. And we are just going to be getting into our first set of DRSs. Of course, a little bit going wide there for Assassin. You got to try and keep it on the circuit if you want to be able to get closer to the gearbox of the car in front, but I think we're going to have a look in the meantime with the current fight for the lead. Ben Mills, about 4/10 of a second, has the DRS available. There's going to be 2 DRS zones coming on both sides of the straights, as we're going to see Josh moving towards the outside. Again, there's not much that can be done in terms of getting that overspeed necessary, especially in the dirty airs. It's quite difficult. And we're going to be seeing a bit of a gap being moved between the two cars, really pushing themselves out there in the front, and Last Gen Newt kind of ringing up with another set of cars behind, as SK is going to be getting a 3-second time penalty, and Geek is going to be trying to keep close of Newt, especially as these drivers are going to go later into the stint with these hard tyres.
As you might have missed in the background, Tom Roberts made the move on Ali into the final chicane, so he's now going to be on the back of Geek as he is right now. So Geek, very crucially, needs to be in Last Gen Newt's DRS to help try and protect both of them from Tom Roberts, who's going to try and make his way past both of them as soon as possible.
Yeah, and already 5 laps in, about 2 seconds already between the top 2 drivers, really showing that there is a big fight at the front and a bit of a pickings for the rest below, as Ben Mills is getting nice and close. We already have a yellow flag in Sector 2, and that's outside of turn 9, turn 10, I think it is. I think it's going to be more about how well these guys can charge up the battery and get it going, because having the necessary battery to overtake and pushing where you can is going to be very, very important. Actually, seeing Geek nipping in about 2/10 of a second behind Last Newt, wanting to fight for that last of the podium positions. We're going to be seeing how well he can do so. This is another DRS straight here. It's kind of difficult to go here, but side by side, braking late for Geek, really showing that the inside is the way. Inside's the way to go in terms of turn 2 and making the overtake, and that's going to be a podium position for now. But I'm expecting Newt is going to be wanting to get a little bit of revenge.
It's crucial there for Geek to make that move, because it means that now Last Gen U is the one who's being pressurized by Tom Roberts. I think both of them will want to try and work together, use the DRS, and just try and keep Tom Roberts behind for as long as possible, because we know what sort of pace that he has. But here comes Tom Roberts down the inside, dumping a lot of battery. He's already made the move there on Last Gen U. Can only think now that Geek might be a sitting duck without the DRS.
Yeah, and I think even so, he's about 4/10 behind. So within that second, within that DRS window, which is going to help him get up to about 50 horsepower worth of extra power equivalent, and already in that corner making about 1/10 of a second. So I'm expecting Geek to be up and close and actually thinking better of it and letting the overtake happen. So I'll be honest with you, I'm expecting that more to be not just about DRS, but also whether or not Geek actually wants to fight it, because there wasn't any opportunity. Well, there was no move that Geek made. I think thinking better of it and thinking in long term for the race.
To use the DRS here, Tom Roberts, because he's going to be able to stick with it and then close up to the fight at the front. So maybe it was a smart move from both of them. We've also seen how high the tyre wear is at Silverstone. We're not sure what the numbers are like here, but I think it might be better for both of them just, not use too much tyre fighting Tom Roberts when they know he's going to make the move and just try and make the one-stop work. We saw earlier the AWS strategy predicted a two-stop, but I think a lot of these drivers are going to opt and just try and get their hard tyres to maybe at least lap 20. We see a snap oversteer there from Geek as he's under pressure there from last gen New.
And looking back in the fight for the top two drivers, again, keeping it to within 3/10 of a second, as we are going to be looking to see whether or not Josh can defend for their life, as the DRS is going to be open with that Williams behind. But again, it's a bit of a drag race, unfortunately, but cannot be made so much. Let's look further down the field. I think Geek had a bit of a moment overheating the rear tires. Not what you want to be doing, making those mistakes. And right now, in 5th position with a 3-second time penalty. So not the best that you're going to be wanting, as Tom Roberts actually set the fastest lap of the race.
Yeah, last weekend at Silverstone, Guy picked up a 3-second time penalty. That cost him a position on last gen. You can only think that history is repeating itself here. We saw that Tom Roberts setting the fastest lap, so he's not saving his tyres. He's absolutely flying because he wants to try and get up towards the front and he wants to get into the lead of this Grand Prix.
I think one thing to think about for this race, compared to what we saw previously, about 0.6 of a second is going to be that sort of gap. Actually, I want to see it further down the field. Let's have a look at Geek at the moment, about 0.2 behind, as right now is going to have a McLaren nipping at the rear. It's a bit of a sight that we saw in real life. And right now is going to be very much closing up, with Geek, of course, having that 3-second time penalty and having a little bit more struggles. Is going to be important to see whether or not Geek can keep this 5th position. Again, was doing relatively well until a little bit of that mistake earlier that we saw, and you can see a drag race coming down. DRS is going to be used, but think better of it. I think we're going to start seeing a bit of stabilizing times for now, as the drivers in the dirty areas are going to be in the more management mode, and seeing whether or not they can eke their tyres as long as they can, because right now we're not seeing any external factors being at play. Those virtual safety cars, those safety cars for now, but there is a bit of a train going along here, as Newt is kind of what I like to describe as the cork in the bottle, as soon as the drivers start getting through, more drivers will be coming past. There aren't any tyres to be tyres difference is going to be in play here, but it will be interesting to see how well these drivers are going to cope again later into the race with these hard tyres.
9 laps into this Grand Prix, we've had so much more action than we did at Silverstone. Clearly, the dirty air not plaguing the tyres as much as it did before, as we see Ben once again nipping at the heels of Josh Woolley, but now he has Tom Roberts behind him in the DRS, so he's been wanting to make this move as soon as possible to relieve the pressure from him. As we now ride on board, Josh moves to defend the inside, Ben to the outside, but he's going to get a bit of a squeeze there, and Josh managing to hang on. He's going to compromise his exit, so could Tom Roberts now be on the back? Yes, he is. Tom Roberts flying through there on the inside and moves up into 2nd place and sets the fastest lap as well for good measure.
Yeah, it looks like that Ben Mills actually did not have a lot of battery left in the tank. As you see there, those flashing lights on the back there, showing that the car is harvesting. There's actually derating. There's not much battery left in the tank for any of these drivers. As again, it's one of those things to think about, is how well these drivers can build up battery, because in the end, these cars do generate up to, I think it's about an extra 150 horsepower equivalent of extra power, just based off of that MGU, that battery unit. I think it's going to be interesting whether or not Tom can get closely, as that was about 0.3 of a second difference. So probably about 3 to 4 tenths of a second is what you need to actually make an overtake here. As you can actually see, Ben trying to close up to the gearbox of Tom Roberts, wanting to try and take that 2nd place back. As actually be interesting, I'm saying that quite a lot today, whether or not Ben can actually get something going, and right now thinks better of it.
Yeah. Tom Roberts there not able to overtake Josh Woolley as he goes into the wall of champions. That could be ideal. We see last gen you also picking up a 3-second time penalty. That neutralizes him with his fight with Geek, but now puts Ali and Assassin right in the seat to overtake both of them before the end of the race. Tom Roberts is going to be recharging his battery and maybe this lap looking to overtake Josh, but this is really the sort of race that Tom Roberts needs, getting ahead of Ben and picking up some crucial points in the World Drivers' Championship.
I think right now the championship is going to be a bit of a fun one, especially as the way it's going. Josh, at the moment, I do have to bring it back up again just to keep the everyone at home notified. Currently, currently, Josh is actually quite a bit away in points at the moment in terms of the championship. It's not hasn't really got the points in it, but and I will say this now, Ben is currently in third, and I'm gonna just flick it back over to this. So right now, Ben is currently in third place, and Tom Roberts only 4 points behind. So will Tom to actually lead this, he will have to win the race, and I think maybe second and a fastest lap. I have to let probably production work that one out for me. But it's I think this is important here is whether or not Tom can keep Ben ahead, whether he can keep that fastest lap, because that is going to be what's going to differentiate them, leading or keeping that second place in the championship for now. And me, the teacher, actually getting a 3-second time penalty here. So time penalties are going to be very crucial, definitely later in the race. Again, I'm expecting that last chicane being one of the main culprits because you can't straight line it. And this game, even though it is track suggestions, it is still very strict on that set of last corners. It has to be. It does have to be. It's quite a. You can gain a lot of lap time. You can also lose a lot of your race if you do so, as we're going to see a quick lunge into the final corner there. That's actually a very impressive move from Tom Roberts, showing a bit of decisiveness and taking the lead of the race for now. And just for people at home, you can see the DRS actually being available for Tom Roberts. The DRS activation zone is out just before that chicane there, and actually Josh is going to be a sitting duck. As of course the car is not going to be as fast as the car behind. Actually, Wooly taking a 3-second time penalty. He's the first of our top guys to take a time penalty in this race.
The DRS detection point is actually just after that chicane, so it encourages overtakes like we saw from Mr. Roberts, but that is a massive penalty there for Josh Woolley because that essentially relegates him down to third. Hopefully there is not a penalty coming the way of Tom Roberts or Ben Mills either, as you see a yellow flag there coming out of turn 2, and it's Assassin who dropped it, got on the power too early and removed his entire front wing, and I think the safety car has been deployed.
Yeah, looks like cars are going to be going slowly. So some form of safety car has been deployed. Probably.
Actually, I think this might be virtual because if there was a safety car, you would see a yellow dot exiting the pit lane, but there isn't, so I believe this is just a virtual safety car just because it was a front wing and not an entire car being out.
Yeah, it looks like the proverbial track marshals are going to be going in and cleaning up the track for us kindly. And we're actually seeing a lot of drivers, again, keeping to that delta, making sure that they are not infringing on it, as the penalty is quite strict, actually. And actually, as I just say that, Geek shows how strict it is, a drive-through penalty for Geek. Definitely not what they wanted. Already had a 3-second time penalty, and now showing that a drive-through as well.
Yeah, I reckon Geek is trying to be a little bit cheeky there because in the top right you'll see if the virtual safety car is ending, and he was probably trying to get a jump on last gen U, but he just let the delta drop negative, and it's cost him a drive-through penalty, and that's really gonna hurt his race because it's essentially going to drop him probably down to P11. So he's got a lot of work to do now. A bit of damage limitation. How far back of the field can he go?
Yeah, and drive-through penalties, you can't make any changes for new tires, so that is not going to be helping. I actually see a car in the pits, the first one of our people, as it looks like, I think it was just seeing that Alpha actually in the pits making a change. I'll have to have a look. It looked more like a Williams driver to me, actually, so...
I believe Assassin, the driver we saw to spin at turn 2 and lose his front wing, because the cause of the virtual safety car.
Yeah, I think... yeah, I was thinking the pit crew wear blue, don't they, instead of white. They're not what do you call it? Not AlphaTauri, they're also white as well. It was Toro Rosso. That team formerly was named, and we can see time penalties already getting locked up. Again, time penalties are going to be going up and down the field as Josh is going to be making that overtake back to take the lead of the race. So probably has a little bit of battery in the tank, and of course has the DRS available because he was behind at the point of that activation. Actually had a purple third sector as well, just to add it in, rubbing into the wound, as Josh will be taking the lead, but is carrying that 3-second time penalty, so it will be suffering later in that race. And be very much thinking how long keep it by, because really in this race, I think it's going to be very much a struggle. As you're going to see Tom Roberts thinking of moves and Josh covering off for now, as actually AL is going to be making the overtake and going into fourth position.
Yeah, you see that Ben Mills dropping to, it was about 2 seconds, but he's closed up the 4 tenths, so maybe that was a mistake with him. We see Josh Roberts just all over the back of Josh Woolley, was not happy with the overtake, and he wants to get back into the lead immediately. It's going to be another hairpin overtake there for Tom Roberts. Is Josh going to come back at him at the inside? No, he's not, just going to stick behind. But you can just see the front two having quite similar pace, so you can probably see a lot of changing between the top three for the lead. Unfortunately, remember, Josh does have that 3 second time penalty, so although he might finish first on the road, he might not end up taking the victory.
Can we pop on Josh actually? Because I'm wondering whether or not he got the DRS and whether or not he's playing some sort of DRS chicken. It doesn't look like it. So, because I'll be honest with you, it was a bit weird to see him just let him by and not take the DRS. I know it's just out of that exit, but now you're going to have to suffer with the fact that Ben Mills has closed up. And of course, you got that 3 second penalty anyway. That's what I'm thinking. Like, you got a 3 second penalty, especially as we just got told 3 second penalty for Tom Roberts. I think everyone's going to be getting penalties today.
Yeah, very crucial now for Ben Mills not to pick the penalty. He can just sit in that 1.3 second range, not even make an overtake, but will be gifted the victory. As I said before, 3 second time penalties. Not picking one up is extremely crucial to your finishing position, as we're seeing here today. Obviously, both Josh and Tom pushing so hard for the race victory. We saw Josh let Tom through into the hairpin. Maybe Josh was considering the fact that Ben was in his DRS and didn't want to lose too much time going side by side with another car in the hairpin, trying to preserve his position.
And I think and I think right now we are at that point where drivers going to be thinking, when are they going to pit? The undercut was really powerful, and I think undercut in this game is very, very powerful indeed. The grip level differences are huge with these sort of tires. So I'm thinking right now, you know, we already saw Assassin having to pit in for a damage that caused out that small virtual safety car. I'm thinking if we're seeing a two pit stop race, I'm thinking tires are going to be coming out very soon.
Yeah, I think Ben might be considering the undercut right now because he's 1.8 seconds behind, but he is dropping. And if he wants that race lead, he needs to be within 3 seconds of Tom Roberts, or even say P2, and limit the damage. You see Geek trying to make the move on Edie there around the outside of turn 2, not able to get the traction, and he's going to have to leave that one for another day. Looking back up at the front, Josh also now dropping out of DRS of Tom Roberts. So it might be undercut for Ben and Josh. We are approaching about halfway, so we should be expecting some pit stops, preferably onto the medium compounded tyre.
Yeah, and Geek, you can see here having some struggles with some cars behind. There's, of course, a bit of a four-way train here for sixth position as Edie. You know, there is quite a big gap, actually, between Edie and the rest of the field. So this really is a cork-in-the-bottle moment. As soon as Edie is getting by, it means that all the other drivers will be wanting to nip with that advantage. In doing so, I think right now Geek is quite far out of position compared to was in qualifying. Of course, the drive-through not being helpful in any way again. Luckily, it is Canada. It's one of the shorter pit stops on the calendar, so won't be affected so much in that drive-through. But either way, you don't want to be taking multiple time drive-through penalty when you can. Again, trying to keep it close up here. I actually see a lot of slip coming out from these cars now. We're getting, of course, late into that tire window for these hard tires. And of course, as you're saying, cars are starting to drop out of DRS. Sector 2 is going to be a bit of a yellow flag coming out of Sector 2 going to Sector 3. Probably want to make those overtakes. And apparently rain might be at play.
The same message. That is going to be very interesting. Maybe it's why we're not seeing any pit stops, is that the drivers know there is some rain coming, so they want to stay out on their hard tyres and make it to the rain period, which is going to be very, very dangerous. It's, I think we're starting to see the first drops of rain here on the halo of Geek.
And looks like Josh has tried to dive early into the pit lane and actually has had a bit of a problem getting in there and putting a 10-second time penalty. Luckily, this can actually be served in... Maybe not.
But it won't be served on this. It can't be served on the pit stop that he did it on. So he sped into the pit lane on this occasion, so he won't be served in this pit stop. So unless he stops again, he'll have to carry that 10-second time penalty.
Just talking at start qualifying about rain at Canada. It's very, very traditional. And we've seen some of the best races in Formula One being on this circuit in the wet. Again, the area that we're currently in pretty much experienced actually rain during the time of the Grand Prix. But it's not as much relevant in terms of the gaming world. But for this, it's going to be quite thematic as we're going to be seeing Josh already on those tyres. How it's going to be I wish I actually had the timing in front of me and seeing how well these drivers are going around. Because as soon as that transition in terms of where the wet tire is faster than the dry tire, we're going to see massive difference in lap time. So we are seeing some cars keeping out. Tom Roberts actually keeping themselves out at the moment on that dry tire. So it's all going to be about whether or not they can keep it on the road. Ben Mills having a little bit of a skirt again. These rear tires are very much worn. And we're seeing already some yellow flags coming out in Sector 1. I'm expecting some spins coming out for some of the drivers further down the field as SK having a bit of problems and dropping down the field as we're already seeing a minute gap between the top and bottom of the field.
Yeah, what's very important now for Josh is that he doesn't overheat his tyres. Clearly the track is not wet enough. We see ED also in, preferably for the intermediates. So Josh just needs to probably now drive a little bit slower, keep the intermediate tyres in check, because in this game we do get runaway overheating, so he just needs to keep it a little bit slow. The rain clearly not coming down as heavily as he initially thought, so it'll be interesting to see if he loses any time now. Obviously stuck behind Tom Hug and not able to make the overtake.
Think about where we are now. Rain is falling and the intensity will be increasing because that's your current a little bit of haze there. So the rain is starting to grease up the track and starting to make things more difficult again. We're going to see that tire difference between Josh and the rest of the top of the field. So it's all about transition here. It's a bit of moment. I know I'm interrupting a little bit. It's going to be more about how well we can see that transition. A lot of people now starting to struggle in this greasy circuit as I bet you a lot of thinking now for intermediates.
A lot of these drivers, they've been on these hard tyres for 21 laps now, so they're going to be screaming out. The hard tyres also not particularly preferable in the wet conditions because of the warm-up, so the tyre will start to cool down as the rain falls. So a lot of the drivers will be thinking about moving on to the inter, also because they might potentially be entering the puncture range. If your tyre where it exceeds 70%, you do also risk a puncture, so that will also be playing on their minds. But if the rain's not coming down enough, maybe somebody will gamble onto a medium tyre, because it is possible in this game for it to only have light rain and for the slick tyres to remain quick, which would obviously absolutely ruin Josh Woolley as he's now massively out of position.
Yeah, and usually, I mean, I remember playing this game quite a lot in previous years, and it's usually when the DRS is actually disabled, and right now DRS is actually still enabled at the moment. You can still see that those, you can see those little detection points in the map below, they're still green, so they're still enabled for now. Race director is going, well, this is absolutely fine, and the gamble right now not looking too good for Josh. Again, getting that getting that pit stop perfect can mean the difference in many seconds. So seeing a problem going out there in Sector 1 for some of the drivers spinning. Looks like Tom Hug's actually made a bit of a problem. Actually, a bit further back, actually going to see a bit of end plate flying across the end there as some damage getting picked up for Tom. Whether or not he can fix it is another matter. Probably will. I think wet is it's very important to have the downforce, and just actually, yes, we are going to be seeing a new front wing of it. So intermediates are going to be putting on, drivers are going to be thinking, I want some wet tires in this race. Well, intermediates, wet tires don't exist at all in F1. And right now, currently the drivers are not thinking about wet tires for now. Let's have a look if our top two are going to be pitting onto intermediates.
What we saw there between who was it? Tom Hug and Josh was Tom Hug wanted to come into the pit lane, but Josh was obviously continuing on. So Tom Hug was not going to be braking, whereas Josh was, and Tom unfortunately went into the back of Josh and picked up a bit of damage. So that's going to be a shame for him. But he is now on the intermediate tyre, so if the rain picks up, hopefully he can find some pace and make his way back through the field.
Yeah, and I think right now, I think Josh is going to be regretting a little bit whether or not he's actually made the right decision, because currently in fifth place, so has actually made the overtake on Assassin. Does carrying that 13-second time penalty, which is, well, soul crushing. That's knocked out a podium chance for them, and probably, I mean, the championship wasn't really in it. I think there was maybe a small glimpse, but I think the door is truly closed for Josh for this one, for this race, and this championship for now. And I think actually we're seeing quite a big difference between first and second. I think Ben Mills has made a change of tyres potentially.
It doesn't appear that the rain is picking up in pace as we see Geek into the pit lane. He's going back onto the slick tyres, so maybe the track isn't getting as wet as we hoped, which is going to be absolutely heartbreaking there for Josh Woolley. He took the gamble and it just has not paid off. Maybe this will lean towards the drivers pitting for another set of tyres because they have to make one mandatory pit stop before the race, and these hard tyres are going to be absolutely screaming out, also risking punches. So I think it's going to be quite interesting to see who boxes first, because I think the undercut on the medium tyres will be massive, or maybe even a soft tyre because there aren't that many laps left to go.
Yeah, I think Josh tried to make the gamble in terms of getting that advantage in terms of pitting early, but when you're losing about 2 seconds a lap with the intermediate tyres, it's not going to be helping one way, one bit. It kind of reminds me of the opposite. There was actually a race a couple of years ago. I think Charles Leclerc went onto a slick tyre, which was on a very much a wet circuit, and put multiple seconds behind, and Ferrari being Ferrari, had to make another pit stop to switch onto wet tyres. So having one of those moments, everyone else has decided intermediates are the way to go. Geek has made that change back. So Geek already being out of position and now choosing to be a bit further out of position while the main guys are on those hard tyres. I think it's going to be a point to think about. Is the intermediates going to be faster right now? Because everyone's chosen to go on it and the DRS is still open.
It's going to be an interesting watch now as we see Tom Roberts dive into the pit lane, because you don't actually know. The intermediate might be faster just because it's a fresher tyre and the hards are dying. But it'll be interesting to see the lap times of Geek and potentially Last Gen Newt to get evaluation between the two. So Tom Robertson, he's opted for the intermediate tyres. A bit of a safe pick there. I don't think any drivers are sure which tyre is faster. I think potentially might be the intermediates just because the rain is falling. Ali also, and be interesting to see which tyres they pick. Geek still though appears to be the only driver on the track on the slick tyres.
Yeah, it looks like visually actually on track. The rain has intensified. So I think Geek has made probably one of the most unfortunate of choosings to go on a medium tyre as the rain has increased in intensity. That's probably the most, he's running a Red Bull with, it feels more like a Ferrari if it would make more sense in the real world. But right now we are going to be seeing how well, I think a lot of people have had a struggle in terms of keeping on the track, as every driver has accumulated some form of track cut penalty, with the exception of Josh, of course, having the wonderful 10-second penalty earned for speeding in the pit lane and trying to maximize where you can, as Geek has actually made an overtake on those tires. So I don't know. Is it a mistake from GM? Is it the fact that maybe the tire may be better? Honestly, I don't know. I haven't got the timings in front of me, but does make the positional gain going into 10th place as we have 11 laps to go. So not much left. I think the one advantage we're going to get is the fact that the braking zones are going to be longer and the battery is going to be charged up a bit more.
Yeah, as we see, the DRS is still enabled, so the in-game race director does not think that it's wet enough to disable that. I see Geek sliding around there, so I think the intermediate tyre was the way to go. It's a shame for him having that drive-through and now strategical blunder. Maybe he opted for the medium to try to see if he could jump his way up the field. Has not played out for him, so it's going to be a race to forget here for Geek.
Yeah, it looks like he put a new set of boots on and unfortunately got a new set of some skates, and you can see there as the car is having multiple traction issues, snapping out the rear. Again, feeling in the rear is very difficult in this game alone, let alone trying to keep a car on track. Being as fast and as torquey as these cars are, as he is actually very much behind the next car in front, in ninth position, about 17 seconds, and expecting that to only increase with time. I think it's more interesting to know how well Tom has got a 17-second interval to Ben Mills in second place.
That is very crucial for Tom Roberts because he does have a 3 second time penalty. So that gap is going to mean that he is going to retain his lead. Other drivers with time penalties is Josh Woolley, but he has 13 seconds. So if we include the time penalties from the both McLarens, that is 10 seconds. But Josh is not 10 seconds ahead, so he will drop both positions. So it is currently a scrap between the both McLarens. Both McLarens see who will get on the podium. We look further down the grid. We've got Alpha with 6, but all the drivers around him on 3, so he's set to lose positions. And as I said at the start, it is crucial that you didn't get a penalty because you can see it now playing out towards the end of the race. That where you finish on track will not be where you finish come the end of the Grand Prix.
Yeah, it looks like actually Tom carrying a little bit of damage, but it's again, it's with the interval that they've got and the time remaining of the session, unless Tom makes a bit of a mistake, it is not going to make too much of a difference. We're currently looking at the moment AL in 4th place, hunting down a wild Josh, who again, one of those faster drivers, did have the pole position in this race, but has fell down the ladder with marginal mistakes outside, of course, making that mistake going into the pit lane, which is going to be something carrying all the way to the end of this race, as AL's going to be looking for some way of getting through. Again, has that 6-lap tire advantage with the intermediates, and of course the intermediates being a generally softer compound, because you generally need a softer compound, a carcass that can move around a little bit more, grip the track a little bit better, and of course has those grooves as well, so they can push the water outwards. So that softer compound means that the tire difference is going to be even more powerful than dry tires alone, and AL want to be trying to maximize. And I think, yeah, no, DRS is still enabled at the moment, so didn't see anything being used there for now. Actually, I'm wondering whether or not the games even tell us whether or not the DRS is enabled. It is quite wet at the moment, so 3-second time penalties is getting accumulated for SK there. Currently very, very far out of any sort of contention. But AL is going to be keeping it nice and close for now, as, again, it's going to be all about trying to mount an overtake. It's going to be trying to keep it nice and close in these corners, keeping the traction where you can. Sector 1 is going to be seeing a yellow flag out from there, as we're going to see a spinner for one of the cars. I bet you someone is going to catch who did that, but let's keep it an eyes on this battle for the final part of the race, as Geek has finally given up and said, nah, these tires are not good, it's wet right now, and I really need to get a new pair of boots.
It's important for Tom Roberts not to do anything silly, but I have been told he is missing a front end plate, so he has gone into the wall somewhere, potentially exit a turn for the Wall of Champions, but it clearly doesn't seem to be affecting him too much as his gap to Ben Mills is growing exponentially. As we look back here to the battle for the podium, Ali really struggling here to make the move on Josh. See him tapping the Wall of Champions, pushing as hard as he can. And if these two keep fighting, maybe they'll invite last gen Union and we'll have a 3-way scrap for the podium.
Yeah, and he has the tire advantage for now, but the more you're going to be using that tire, the more wear you are going to accumulate. So might be smelling a little bit of blood, but also may have some problems in terms of whether or not you can keep up with the driver speed caliber, actually tapping the wall again. So really trying to maximize where they can with that McLaren, but of course you don't keep on accumulating damage constantly. It's going to slow down the car overall, and Newt is going to be wanting to make a chance later on. As we are seeing another yellow flag in Sector 1. Again, that's going to be the main traction zone. It's one of the slowest parts of the circuit. You also have a change. You're going to have a change in how the car is going to be dynamic. It's going side by side here, looking to see the mount and overtake, but thinks better of it. As Josh is a little bit compromised in the exit, but wanting to try and get as much speed where they can. I do want to have a look at that wing if it does change at all. And it looks like, yeah, the DRS is disabled. I think we didn't get the message. But an easy overtake for AL, again, having that 6-lap tire advantage. And it looks like Newt's going to also be one to do the same.
To remember that Josh Woolley was the first driver onto intermediate tyres. As you can see, has a tyre delta of about 5 or 6 laps to the McLarens around him, so he's going to be dropping pace. Last gen now on the back of Josh Woolley, he's going to want to clear him as fast as possible because he wants to get back on the back of his teammate to have a fight for the podium. So you can see Josh Woolley now just really struggling on traction through all the high speed corners. Oh, and is that a front end plate there missing for last gen on the left hand side?
Yeah, it
No,
looks
on the
like
right
that.
hand side, so yeah.
Yeah, it looks
Hopefully
like
that's not affecting his front grip too much.
yeah, it looks like we do have a end plate in the way. It didn't really make much of a difference there. Looks like we'll be making the overtake into fourth position. So again, these two McLarens being yeah, very much wanting to both fight themselves. They do have a tire advantage over Woolley, and showing that tires are king in this game. They really, really are important in terms of whether or not you can have the pace at that point in the race as we're going down to our final 4 laps remaining of the race. I think the thing to think about right now is going to be, well, Tom has just ran away with it. He's got the pole position right now. He's got, I mean, has the purples. He has the fastest lap. Yes, winning the race right now. Has a 22-second gap, and it's only increased it by 5 seconds over the last 5 laps alone. I think the thing to think about right now is you got about 2.6 second lap remain, 2.6 delta in terms of third and fourth position. I'm thinking whether or not these two are going to close up because I think Josh now is very much dropping down the field.
I think Josh might be a little bit scared of his assassin. He might be 17 seconds behind, but remember, Josh has 13 seconds worth of penalty. So if assassin can find 5 seconds in these final 4 laps, he could potentially jump up a position.
Yeah, time penalty is really playing into an assassin actually keeping it nice and clean. It's actually potentially might be getting an extra position at the end of the race. Would be very, very nice indeed, and a few extra drivers' championship points. And now we can actually see how well that Josh is trying to close up again. Again, within that, within about 8 tenths of a second. Again, DRS is disabled due to the fact it is a wet session at the moment, and we really don't want to be increasing the danger by letting open all your rear downforce. You really, really need when it comes to being in the rain, lack of traction there is on the circuit. And right now, I can say we are really getting to that point of the race where we are really turning into a radio podcast as drivers are starting to settle themselves in as the gaps are starting to widen.
We didn't see the dirty air before, but it might be playing out a bit now. Of course, it's wet, so the cars will be sliding a bit more, and I don't think anyone's going to be taking too many risks now. I don't want to drive into the wall and cause a safety car. Of course, the safety car will not come out after lap 33, so we're nearly out of safety car windows. And for the second race in a row, uncharacteristically for the BUSR, we have not seen a safety car. So congratulations to all our drivers, and we're all fit, and they will all finish this wet race.
Yeah, it looks like virtual safety cars really showing that they are king. Let's have a look further down the field. Tom has actually dropped down to 8th position, and it looks like Alpha's going to be making the move. Very much a quiet race for Alpha in that other Racing Bulls car. And right now, we're actually seeing a bit of flip between. I think there's a bit of driving between Geek and GM, and looks like GM's taking a time penalty for that. So not the best thing for them. Probably will get through going into that hairpin there as both drivers keeping it close but fair. And Geek really showing that I've got this corner and I want to make the overtake. And you can see he has much, much better drive out the corner and will be getting that position into 11th. But again, not the best situation, of course, having that drive-through penalty and taking a risk on a dry tyre on an increasing wet track, and will be keeping themselves in 11th for now. And I think let's go back for the battle of 7th again, at 3 tenths of a second between Alpha and Tom. Of course, in that Aston Martin, you can see their rear wanting, he wants the traction, but there is not traction going to be able to be pushed from these cars. These are definitely some of the highest downforce cars in racing, but even so, the wet conditions will mean that you just cannot get the traction necessary, as we will be getting nice and close onto the gearbox of that Racing Bull of Alpha. Again, Alpha having a reasonably quiet race, not getting much done there. Does actually have a higher 6-second time penalty compared to 3, as both drivers banging wheels there, and Alpha actually getting ran off the road. I'd be wondering whether or not they'll try and get that deleted after the race, but still has a 6-second net, even if it was. And looks
Yeah,
like we'll be go ahead. We've got a lunge coming in there, teeping on the inside as both drivers keeping it neat and tidy, as 7th position will be taken for Tom.
See, I mean, Alpha had more penalties even before he picked up that one than Tom Hug, but obviously he wasn't going to sell to just finish behind Tom. These are racing car drivers. See, after they're losing a little bit of grip, obviously these drivers all running the low downforce because the race started dry, so maybe that's hindering a few who didn't see the forecast that it was going to rain. Alpha potentially one of those, see the rear just sliding even in the higher gears as it gets down the straight.
Yeah, and the rain really has intensified to the point now that it's very, very much a wet race. And Alpha showing he's not just a racing driver, but a rally driver. As these changeable conditions are not going to be helping one bit in terms of his traction, as we are getting onto the penultimate lap of this race. So Tom has been flying, coming from the rear of the field, and last position all the way to very much the lead, 24 seconds in the lead. I think I actually got to turn the lights off as we're going to be going on to our final laps.
It's exactly the sort of race that Tom Roberts needed. We said coming into the final round as we watch Alpha try and make a move down the inside, very sketchy in these sorts of conditions. Pushed into the wall there by Tom Hug. I don't think he's going to be particularly happy about that one. But yeah, as I was saying about Tom Roberts, exactly the sort of race that he needed after not scoring particularly well in Silverstone. This will mean that he will retake the lead of the Drivers' Championship as he now heads on to finish his final lap of the race, 24 seconds in front, doing a bit of a slide there. He's going to be very happy with himself the way that he's driven today.
I think he's kind of showing off at the moment, putting that spin in there. Well, spin, a little bit of a drift, of course, because right now, very much comfortably in the lead. Has definitely a bit of tire remaining, I think.
Very dangerous
Well,
thing though, to go sliding around Canada. We saw Sebastian Vettel lose the Grand Prix lead on the final lap in wet conditions. So playing with
yeah,
fire maybe is Tom Roberts, but the gap is still 24. So I think he's just having a bit of fun really and putting a nice show on for the fans.
yeah, I do remember actually watching that race back in I think it was 2011.
2011, yes.
Yeah, I do
Yeah,
remember that
2011.
race and staying up till I think it was like 8, 9 o'clock at night. It was a very, very long race for the people who do remember it. And again, Canada really likes to bring out some of the fun in F1 and some of the unpredictability as Tom has come from the rear of the field all the way to the beginning as he's got one set of corners remaining. As that track looks incredibly wet. Definitely not something you want to be racing in a open wheel type car as the final two corners going across the line. And across the line will be Tom Roberts winning round 5 at Canada. And right now we're going to be seeing a couple of cars as we've got a little bit of spare time remaining as there was such a big gap made. God, it looks absolutely horrible there in Montreal. It's again final last corners. Second place will be going over to Ben Mills in that Williams. It's maybe a race of what it could have been, really showing that Tom Roberts has the pace across as AL will be coming across the line in third place, taking very, very fabled final podium position. Last Newt will be coming across the line as well as Josh, as we will be seeing the time penalties accumulated, as well as an unserved penalty. Well, a penalty will be applied to the end of the race, and Assassin will be coming across the line very, very soon. And I think overall, Josh actually did make the pace difference, so we'll be keeping that 5th place overall. As the second Williams driver will be coming across. Couple of drivers will be coming at the end. I think the big one's going to be 9 seconds between 8th and 9th place. So do keep an eye, see whether or not 8th position will be kept by ED as there are only a few corners remaining as drivers will be celebrating the way. It looks like actually a second has been dropped by ED at the very end. So looks like we'll be keeping that position overall for 9th and Alpha keeping that 8th place.
Look at the conditions at the end of the race. We were talking about how it could potentially be dry. It looks like it could potentially even be full wets now. So very impressive from all our drivers to keep it out the barriers and to get all 13 drivers across the line. I think everybody will be happy with their finishing position. But more than anyone, this man here, Tom Roberts, who retakes the lead of the Drivers' Championship with only 3 rounds remaining.
Yeah, so it looks like Championship has closed back up as Tom Roberts really showing dominance in the changeable conditions. And I think right now we are going to be lining up a couple of interviews with our drivers. I think the big one to talk about is, you know, what could have been for Josh. I think that was a very, very big one and a gamble that really did not help in any way. And I think also AL getting himself a podium position where an opportunity could be made. Again, Josh making those mistakes and AL taking where he can. But Tom Roberts, Ben Mills, and AL will be finished off those podium positions.
Yeah, Ben Mills, one of only two drivers not to pick up a single penalty in the race. Of course, the gap to Tom Roberts was so huge that it didn't matter, but we thought it was important for Assassin because it did keep him in contention. So very impressive for those two drivers to keep it clean. Yeah, we saw at the start AL lost out to his teammate, but through some great driving, made it back through. Unfortunately, Josh's gamble didn't pay off in the way that he wished. That AL takes a very well-earned podium.
Yeah, and I think overall, I think say congratulations to most of the drivers who kept it relatively clean, not seeing a safety car at all. I know Buckets is saying that he's not racing and there's no safety car. Is it a coincidence? I think not. I don't want to curse on it any sort of way, but it's good to see drivers keeping itself clean and relatively not ruining other people's races. And overall, the gaps did widen at the end. Again, wet conditions can cause a bit of delta between who's good on traction and who isn't on those low grip environments. But for now, we are going to be lining a couple of interviews up. I think overall the race was not too bad.
It was an excellent race, considering what we had last time out in Silverstone with the iconic and remember if there was an overtake in Silverstone and the amount of action we had in the first 10 laps. I think we should have Canada on the calendar every single year because that was an absolutely fantastic race.
Yeah, I hope it isn't like one of those tracks that are on rotation like Spa is going to be next year. But
So disappointing that.
well, it's the way it goes, and I think as Formula One really likes to try and expand, it's always going to be bringing us various tracks in various ways. Believe me, I'd love a couple of old tracks to come back, but in the meantime, it looks like we are going to start getting our top three in. I think overall, um, I think the low grip environment actually does really show that. Definitely still to cut. There's still definitely some level of control needed, especially with how much grip there is rear wise in this game. And overall, not. I think overall not too bad.
It'll be interesting to ask the drivers what was going through their mind as the rain was falling. You know, were they considering slicks? Were they considering inters? Did they have the fact that their tires were probably in the 70% range? That there could have been a puncture, you know, they would have been sliding, tapping a few walls. So all those things going through their mind. But a lot of them kept it clean, kept their head in the game, made the right strategy calls, and for some people gained positions, and for some, unfortunately, lost out.
And I think as well, um, it's going to be talked about. I mean, most people accumulate penalties just because Canada is terrible in terms of trap penalties, especially that last chicane. And in the end, it didn't mean anything, which is honestly the best thing you could have hoped for. There was an opportunity for Edie to get that eighth position, and unfortunately made a bit of a mistake at the end, losing about a second in that last hairpin. So, but at least the penalties didn't make too much of a difference, even for someone like Josh, who well like to accumulate a 10-second penalty just by trying to take it a little bit much into the pit lane. Um, just waiting on drivers to get off their personal debrief and get themselves into our lobby. It looks like we are going to start getting our interviews. I kind of want to bring AL in if he's wanting to. It's our third place. We do actually have our other top drivers in as well. It's the great
I mean,
admin side of broadcast, guys.
of course. That 10-second penalty from Josh was a bit unfortunate, but it was, of course, worn tyres, wet track, and in the F1 game, the braking line going into the pit lane is actually incorrect, so you have to brake earlier, so all those factors would have played in, and it was just really unfortunate for Josh, but he was going to make that gamble anyway. He would have had the tyre wear and the reduced pace, so I think that fifth place was probably where he was going to end up.
Right, let's bring our first person in. So let's bring Ben Mills in, our second place driver. Hello there, Ben. How was your race and what looked to be quite a tricky end of race for Canada?
Overall, it was, I mean, pretty lonely. I had a good start. I got past Josh on the around the outside of turn one, which felt nice. but just to be overtaken a few laps later. And then I couldn't overtake with the dirty air and his straight line speed. So and then when Tom inevitably caught back up, he passed with ease. And then I lost DRS after the VSC, and that was pretty much it.
Ben, I would first like to say congratulations for being only one of two drivers not to pick up a single penalty or race, which is very impressive considering the rain did start to fall while you were on slicks. I was just wondering, in that period where the rain was falling, obviously you saw Josh pin for intermediate tyres, your tyres would have been falling off a cliff. Like, what was going through your mind? What strategy were you trying to come up with?
Yeah, I saw Josh was he got damage just before the hairpin, and then he pit, and I saw that he got a 10-second for speeding. So I knew that I had a bit of margin in terms of going longer. But then it was really a waiting game to see how wet the track got, which took a while. But I was sliding about on the hards, which I really struggled. Really, I didn't have much pace, and I think that contributed to losing 20 odd seconds to Tom in front.
Awesome. I think overall, like now, Tom's actually get the lead of a championship for now with fast lap, and of course that first place. I'm wondering, for you right now, is there any opportunity with 2 rounds to go, whether or not you can mount a a title run?
Well, I just need to hope that he gets damage on that one again. That's probably my only hope, if anything. But yeah, no, I mean he's so clear in terms of pace that my expectation is and aims are really for P2. So
Awesome. Well, no worries. Second place for you, and we'll see how it goes cleaning out yourself, of course, in that wet race in Canada. Thank you very much.
thank you.
And I think we're now going to bring in our first place driver. Let's bring in Tom, shall we? Hello there, Tom, and congratulations for winning a very wet Canada.
Thank you.
So I think the one thing I'd ask is very much count to do a rear of the field to the win. How did it feel this week actually being able to do it?
It felt good. I actually had some issues off the line, which sort of kept me out of a lot of trouble on lap one. And there was obviously a couple of guys off on lap one that helped me, and then yeah, after surviving lap one, I managed to make the overtakes. And
So
luckily, it was a
Tom,
simple
oh sorry,
strategy.
I'm sorry. We've seen you struggle in qualifying in the past here and in Silverstone, but we've seen that you could make your way through the field. If you have more race like Silverstone, do you think that maybe your championship lead could be a little bit under pressure from the likes of maybe last venue, Josh and Ben Mills?
Yeah, definitely. If things happen like they did at Silverstone, then I'm gonna struggle. But hopefully that was a one-off, because it was like quite an unfortunate incident I had on lap one where I had damaged the whole race, and that didn't happen today. So I managed to work my way through the field.
Well, no worries. I think going into next round, I'm just going to have a look what the race is going to be, but it's going to be Spa-Francorchamps. How do you feel Spa is going to be in terms of racing and overall? How do you feel like it's going to be on this game? Because when I think of Spa, I think of similar to Snaro's Silverstone. So how do you feel about it?
Yeah, definitely similar to Silverstone, but honestly, I think it's more the opposite on this game. Tracks like Silverstone and Spa are probably more hard to overtake than it is at Canada, because the hairpin in the last sector is just such a good overtaking spot in Canada. Whereas in Spa, if you're in a DRS train, it's very difficult to get past. Um, but we'll see.
Yeah, no worries. Well, congratulations on your win at Canada, and have fun, and hopefully we'll get to see you in Spa.
Yes, thank you.
Awesome. Well, overall, not too bad for a fifth round of our championship. We have a couple more rounds remaining. Of course, Spa-Francorchamps being one of those classic tracks. We just recently had one in real life, and again, I think it's one of those circuits we're gonna probably see something similar to Silverstone. So qualifying is gonna be very important. Dirty is gonna be very powerful. So I'm wondering how that's going to be.
Well, I'm actually going to be competing in that race, so unfortunately you won't have me for commentary. So maybe going into round 7 I can give you my feedback, but yeah, I'll be getting behind the wheel of the Kickstarter, obviously representing the colours of Warwick University, as you can see in my ID, getting in between the drivers, and hopefully I can get my first podium. Yet to finish on the podium, Spa, my personal favourite track, so see what I can do.
Yeah, and hopefully you guys at home can also join us for next week. Thank you for our partners, of course, at Grid Finder, SimStuff, and Traction GG. And of course, if you want to find us and do the events online for BUSR, if you're a student or maybe one of the more people looking outwards who want to have a look, we also have other series, of course, not just in F1, but also in Assetto Corsa, as well as I think iRacing as well. So do have a look on us on, of course, our grid finder as well as our socials. Of course, they're all linked below. Thank you very much, Oren. It's been a wonderful ride, and thank you to production. Thank you, Cam, for helping us out in the back room. And we'll hope to see you guys next week. Thank you very much, and have a good evening.